but the potential demand on some of these utility tokens is absolutely outrageous. It's insane. And I want to explain one thing too, guys, is like the price now doesn't reflect the real utility. Because if you look at Amazon, I don't know if you've seen Jeff Bezos talk about the history of Amazon. He said while Amazon was growing like crazy, he says we're looking at the numbers. He says our sales were increasing, our acquisition of client was increasing like crazy, our returns was way down. We're having less returns. Like every metric we're looking at was just booming, unreal. And at the same time, the price of the stock was going down. The price went from like $100 to $10, while everything about the company was just exploding in a positive way. The stock was actually going down. And he said, the stock is not the company is not the stock. And that's what I mean. Like what's happening with Quant and XRP and some of these utility tokens right now, the price is not reflecting the real value of these networks that are being built and these use cases that are going to be being built right now on top of these networks.
I say it all the time. The impatient always seem to find a way to give their money to the patient ones. Let's go into another asset that people might be crying about, QNT, right? QNT is not flashy, absolute boring price action, which I absolutely love, but it is the invisible layer that the world will need. You say that Quant isn't trying to be money, that it is the middleware, it is the operating system, very much like how Microsoft was for the internet. Quant is the OS for blockchain. Talk to me about why Quant's role is so critical.
This is another 3-hour conversation right here. I would encourage everybody, if you don't mind, to watch my QNT playlist. I have 2 playlists there. One is for XRP, Unified Ledger, and the other one is QNT. I really encourage you to watch at least the first 2 or 3 videos on QNT. I would encourage you to watch all 6 of them. They're only about 30 minutes each, 30, 35 minutes each, really, because the 4th and 5th one are extremely important as well, talking about all the utility being built up in these sandboxes. But you definitely want to watch at least the first 2 videos on really to understand why Quant is not why it's technically positioned to be the next Microsoft. Meaning it absolutely crucial for the adoption of this 4th industrial age. So the idea is the 3rd industrial revolution, okay, the information age that we talked about earlier, the internet, would never have happened without the Microsoft Windows operating system. Now, it's questionable if it was actually Microsoft that invented. Some people say that he stole it from somebody else or whatever, but it was absolutely crucial in the sense that my understanding is that I asked the AI to explain to me the other day, like, give me a simple explanation of why Microsoft was so crucial. I wanted basic 1 grade, whatever, right? And technically, it's like Microsoft Windows is almost like, how to describe what it did is almost like everybody knows that there's this new playground, this new amazing world, this internet world that you can go and do anything on, but nobody knows how to get there. So it's this amazing new world, but nobody can get there because in order to get there, you got to go through 18 wars. You got to go through like 1,000 mountains. You got to go through forest fires. You got to basically, it's impossible to get there. You cannot get there. You don't know how to get there. What basically Microsoft Windows did when they created the OS is literally like a big red button. You press it and boom, you're there, right? You have the hard drive and the processor and the window, and like many things, many different computer components allow your computer to come alive. So I think the operating system is what allows all your components in your computer to interoperate, to communicate with one another. So what happens is rather than you having to spend 8,000 years trying to connect all the different components of your computer, be able to turn your computer on and then somehow access the internet world, you just press a button and boom, it creates interoperability between all of your computer systems, the computer components, and interfaces with the internet as well, and the browser and stuff like that, which is above my pay grade. But you just press a button and this creates interoperability and boom, it allows you to access this internet world. But it's because of the interoperability that it creates with your computer components and your Explorer and so on and so forth. Right? So this is what allowed the world to, without Microsoft Windows, we would have no internet.
Right.
You never would have been able to go on the internet. Quant Overledger, which uses the QNT token for certain things, many, many things, is doing the same thing for the 4th industrial revolution. It's the same thing. Because right now, the blockchain, people are like, there's such a lack of knowledge in the blockchain crypto world because it's moving so fast. It's not everybody's fault. Honestly, if I had not found out about Quant and listened to Gilbert Verdian, the creator of Quant, if I had not listened to everything he said 100 times, being that he's one of the top cybersecurity experts in the world, he was responsible for the cybersecurity of the UK Treasury and the Bank of England,
Yep.
worked on the Federal Reserve. Okay, so he understands how these commercial banks and central banks and these fintechs and these massive, massive corporations cannot shut down their systems. These systems cannot shut down. So he understood what we need, and he also understood the architecture of the original internet. He wrote a paper 20 years ago explaining how the internet was not secure. The internet was not made for moving money. He wrote this paper 20 years ago. So he knew, being one of the top cybersecurity experts in the world, because the whole cybersecurity, his whole industry is built on the fact that the internet was never made to move money. It's not secure. He never expected the internet to be what it is today, and that created a lot of vulnerabilities, and that's where the cybersecurity industry came from. It's the security internet, like all these patches and security updates and all that stuff. This is what he does, and he's one of the top of the world. So he knew that in order to have blockchain adoption, fully blockchain adoption, you had to put the same things in place that had been put for the original internet. Let me explain to you why Quant is just crucial, why we cannot have real blockchain adoption, the full adoption and full utility of blockchain without Quant. So right now, all of the different industries in the world that we have, whether you're talking healthcare, global trade, payments, financial system, energy, every sector you can think of. Can you think of many? Because I'm only thinking of 4 or 5 off the top of my head. Can you name a few that I'm not thinking of? You have healthcare, you have supply chain management.
E-commerce,
Yep.
micropayments, every industry. Construction,
Every
doesn't matter.
industry, construction, accounting, everything, every industry. The only way that you can bring these to blockchain, all of these industries are operating on what we call legacy systems. They're all using hardware, software, different applications. Everything they're using is what we call legacy systems. They're not compatible with blockchain, and he understood that. So the same problem we have with the computer, where all the components couldn't connect and interoperate with each other, the existing world we have right now is all trapped in legacy systems, and it cannot interoperate. It cannot connect seamlessly and speak the same language of blockchain. And not only can it's not compatible with blockchain, it's also certainly cannot connect to multiple blockchains at the same time and benefit from all the blockchains. So right now, they might be connecting like a little application or something into Ethereum. That's one blockchain. And when they try to do cross-chain, that's why you see all these hacks, because the cross-chain that they're doing prior to Quant is not secure. There's some vulnerabilities there. That's why you're seeing all these $1 billion, $2 billion, $6 billion hacks, because the cross-chain that they're doing, the type of cross-chain we're doing, is not secure. It doesn't work. And so what Quant did is he created an overledger, which is an operating system that allows any legacy systems that exist to connect to blockchain seamlessly and connect to multiple blockchains at the same time. And what this does is that now you can pick the best features of each blockchain and build what is called a multi-chain application. So now you're benefiting from all the blockchains.
Yep.
Yeah. Now you can benefit from all the blockchains. So you like XRP for settlement, and you like Ethereum for the smart contract, and you like Solana for something else, and you really like SUI for something else, and you like the Energy Web Token blockchain for something else. You can pick the best features of each blockchain and build a multi-chain application for whatever industry or whatever type of solution that you're trying to build. So an example of this is years ago when the internet started, if somebody said, if your internet provider told you, hey, well, you can have internet with us, but you got to choose one internet website. Well, what do you mean I can only have one website? Like, choose the website you want, and in 6 months to a year from now, if you want another one, we'll switch you over then. We'll try to switch you over. The internet never would have flourished. The internet became what it became because we had access to all the websites. We had all these choices. So he explains how these central banks cannot shut off their systems for 9 months to integrate into one blockchain like Ethereum. And then if something happens with that blockchain where the transactions slow down or gets too expensive, they have to somehow switch over. These are what you call national critical infrastructure. These systems cannot shut down. The nation of the world, the nation runs on this system. You cannot shut it down because there was an issue with the blockchain and we're going to try to switch over and spend another 3 months trying to integrate our backend in a new blockchain. So that's the thing, like Quant allows you to benefit from all the blockchains and pick the best features of each one. And it also allows all these legacy systems that exist, which is the existing world, it allows it to be compatible with blockchain so that we can merge the old world, the third industrial revolution. We can now move it into the fourth industrial revolution. The same way that the third industrial revolution moved on to the second industrial revolution moved on to the third industrial revolution via Microsoft Windows. and the internet. So now Quant is that Microsoft Windows, and all the blockchains are technically the internet world, the new internet world. Gilbert Verdine approached the IETF 3 years ago. So that's the Internet Engineering Task Force, and MIT. They are responsible for everything for the internet the last 30 years. Every standard, every development and standardization of every internet protocol we had the last 30 years is because of the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and MIT. We would not have the internet today if it wasn't for the IETF and MIT. So Gilbert Verdine approached them like 3 years ago. He says, hey, listen, we need to create a new standard. We need to create a new protocol, a new standard for digital assets to be able to move seamlessly. We need to create a new standard to move digital assets from one network to another. And they said, yes, of course, because he's the GOAT. And they said, okay, let's do it. And originally they called it the Open Digital Asset Protocol, but now it's called the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, SATP. So what Quant is doing, along with the IETF, and keep in mind, this is the organization responsible for the internet we have today. If you look at the members of the IETF, it's literally all the most powerful corporations in the world. IBM, Microsoft, the intelligence agencies, on and on. Google, like Accenture, like they're all there. They're all represented, and numerous intelligence agencies as well, putting their input on at the IETF to advance the internet. Well, here we have Quant chosen, the IETF saying, yeah, you're right, let's do this. And one of the people at Quant is the one of the guys at Quant, I think, is it Martin Hargreaves or another one? He actually wrote the SCT, the first draft of the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. So they're literally Quant is literally chairing this new Secure Asset Transfer Protocol that is technically re-architecturing the internet. So what it does is they're literally doing a new protocol, a standardized protocol for when assets want to move from one network to another. And a lot of the Quant community are confusing the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol with the Interledger Protocol. They think it replaces XRP, but they're not realizing, like, no, the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol has a different purpose than the Interledger Protocol.
Simply just because they hear that word interoperability.
So Secure Asset Transfer Protocol means that you want to move one asset from one network to another, that it can reside. So let's say Citibank has a token. They want to send Citibank token to JP Morgan, and JP Morgan network, JP Morgan is okay to hold Citibank token. Now, this standardized protocol allows network A, which is Citibank, to send the Citi token to JP Morgan network, and it can reside on the JP network. But it's done through the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. The Interledger Protocol is different because the Interledger Protocol is when you want to exchange an asset. And this is where 99% of the QNT community have it wrong, and where 99% of the XRP community as well didn't understand what the SATP, because very few people have researched both. Very few people are crazy enough to spend the time I spent. So I'm not taking credit. But so there's a big misconception. But what I mean is, so Quant is literally helping to re-architecture the internet, and it's creating an overlaying the internet. Quant's an overledger. So they're literally overlaying the internet, technically. So it's kind of like digital assets now can move separately. They're separating the two layers. So now there's a secure layer for moving digital assets from one network to the other, and then you kind of have the other layer, which is the internet basic information layer. So there's two internets being built right now. Is the internet of value, which is the XRP ledger, and there's the internet of trust, like I was saying, which is Quant. Okay, so I'll give you one example of one partner of Quant. This is one partner, all right? One partner, Oracle. Oracle has 340,000 corporate clients. Oracle, it's made public 3 years ago that they're using Quant as their true interoperability solution so that they can bring blockchain solutions to all of their clients. They have 340,000 corporate clients, and out of those, I think 50,000 of their clients have a market cap of over 1 billion or have more than 1 billion in revenue per year. And one client alone, we'll look at the national defense in the US, one client alone will spend $2, $3, $4, $5 billion per year with Oracle. One client. They have 430,000 clients. And every use cases, every solution that Oracle is going to bring to their 430,000 client has to use QNT. You cannot use an MDAP, a multi-chain application, or Quant Overledger without somehow using the XRP token. Without using the QNT token. The Quant Overledger, which is the operating system, cannot function without the QNT token being used. That's one client. So one client of Quant, Oracle, has 340,000 corporations that they supply like everything involved in IT and anything technology, right? And one of those clients, so one out of the 340,000 client spends billions and billions of dollars per year. Now, keep in mind, that's one client of Quant. I could tell you about 10 clients they have like that. They were also chosen by the Regulated Library Network. I'll give you an example of Project Rosalind. Project Rosalind is one of the projects under the BIS, where the BIS, which is the central banks for all central banks, has confirmed that Quant was the interoperability solution and the underlying infrastructure for Project Rosalind. Okay, now this is one project of the Innovation Hub. There's 43 projects on the Innovation Hub. This is one. And we know that Quant was chosen to be the interoperability and infrastructure layer for this project. Now let's look at Project Rosalind. Project Rosalind involved the first phase. There's many phases. This is just first phase. Involved the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, numerous massive commercial banks, and like 40 fintechs, including Amazon, WorldPay, and on. Massive central banks, massive commercial banks, and numerous fintechs, all using Quant to build multi-chain applications. And they're using Quant to build multi-chain applications to bring use cases to this new money, to bring use cases, because governments are building CBDCs, but they want people to use it. So in order for people to use it, they need to have use cases. So Project Rosalind, like I said, massive fintechs, massive phase one. This is just phase one. Again, this is just one project out of all the different innovation projects that we know Quant has to be chosen for many of them because it's the same solution they need. So all building multi-chain applications using Quant so that they can bring use cases and demand for these new CBDCs that are going to be launching in the next year, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But this Project Rosalind is one project. Again, the Innovation Hub has 43 of them. I'm not saying that they're all involving Quant, but I can tell you that Quant was chosen by the central banks for all central banks to be the true interoperability solution because it's the only way that the whole private sector that's working with the central bankers, it's the only way they can properly connect the blockchain and build what are called multi-chain applications and take advantage of this. Quant is allowing the programmability of money. They made it public. They're allowing programmability of money. They're allowing citizens to inject logic. Right now, you can go technically, well, it's not there yet because it hasn't, like, all the banks haven't adopted it. But with the programmability of money via Quant, you can now program your bank account.
Yep, pay.
You can say, okay,
yep.
If I have $500 left at the first of the month, send $100 to my daughter, invest $100 in Google, invest $100 in XRP, and the other $200, I don't know, put that in a stock somewhere or whatever. You can program your account. Or on the 14, if I have this much or this, then do this and this. If this, like, you basically injecting logic in money, it's called programmability. Only Quant does that. So now all the commercial banks, and you're going to be able to program money, including tokens. You're going to be able to technically program. So anyways, that's kind of a general idea of what Quant is. Quant is 1,800 times cheaper than Bitcoin right now.
Also 33% less of the supply, 14.8 million coins versus your 21 million.
Exactly.
And seems like the amount of volume, the TAM that can flow into it, we're talking quadrillions of dollars.
It's insane. Like, in order for the secure asset transfer protocol that they're standardizing, now keep in mind, the secure asset transfer protocol is being standardized at an internet level. This is a new internet protocol that's being laid over the internet we have today. And when a network wants to send money to another network via the secure asset transfer protocol, it can only send it through a gateway. And the only way that you can host a gateway right now is with your QNT token.
It's a toll booth.
You host the gateway. You become the toll booth. People are going to cry.
It's the highway, and there you are. You're the toll booth, and everything that wants to flow through you. I mean, it really is probably the most disruptive technology. I mean, blockchain, the early stages of blockchain, it's so fragmented. Everything's operating in silos, and Quant is truly offering that interoperability for it to actually become on the same level that we have with the internet today.
When you have to host a gateway, anytime you want to connect, and by the way, they're coming up in the next few months, they're going to be releasing more stuff here.
Staking.
So the Fusion launch is going to be called Bring Your Own Node and Bring Your Own Connectors. So very shortly here, maybe 2, 3, 4 months, maybe 4 months at the max, they have what's called Bring Your Own Connector. Anybody, as long as they're following the guidelines or the specifications outlined by Quant, you can connect any blockchain. You want to connect any blockchain, you can do it. And you can connect any type of legacy system as well. So anybody can connect anything to Quant Overledger. Any blockchain, any system, any software, any data, anything you can connect. It's called bring your own connector. So this is what called the Internet of Trust. We're going to be able to connect anything to any blockchain, any to any. And we can all participate.
One of the great things about Fusion, and ultimately up until now, there was no means to have that connectivity between the public and the private chains. So Quant's Fusion is also tapping into public chains and private chains. It allows you to get the liquidity out of the public chains, but also benefit from the security of the private ledgers. You get the benefits from both liquidity as well as the security.
And allowing all the institutions that exist today, mainstream, all institutions, the big institutions, TradFi, to literally start really tapping into DeFi. It's taking the big money, the real money, and now bringing that to blockchain and DeFi. The real money, not the retailer money like me, the real money.
Let's get into the question everybody wants to know. You've said that Quant could become one of the most explosive tokens in history. Walk me through this thesis. I know you don't want to say it, but please, ballpark range. What are you thinking? Of course, Bitcoin prices, I honestly think that it's possible it could touch $1 million, but what is the thesis? Most explosive token in history? What is it?
Okay, so non-financial advice. I know I said it. I'm going to say it again. Non-financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. You can all go to zero. There's no guarantees here. But Quant right now is positioned to be the Microsoft Windows. They really are. If you do your research, they're positioned to be the next Microsoft Windows of the fourth industrial age, fourth industrial revolution. And there is less supply than Bitcoin. If they are successful, which I believe they're positioned to be right now, no guarantees, but if they are successful, which it seems they're positioned to be right now, to be the next operating system to capture even just 50% of the market cap of this next thing, even just 20%. So I'll tell you why I disagree when people say like, oh my goodness, Quant would never hit 100,000. I'm not saying it will hit it next year, okay? But the idea that, okay, so let's say they're successful, they are the true operating system for this next industrial revolution. Everybody has to go through it in order to build multi-chain applications. Everything, CBDCs are built on it. Use cases for CBDCs are built through it. Everything. The idea that it cannot hit 100,000 is absolutely ridiculous, okay? It already happened. Bitcoin hit over 100,000 and it has more supply than Quant. So how can you say that something that already happened cannot happen? This is not logic. I'm sorry. I'm just being real with you. It's not logic to say that something that has already happened cannot happen. Bitcoin has more supply than Quant. If you put Quant at Bitcoin's market cap, Quant would be about $160,000, having Bitcoin's market cap. And if Quant is successful, there's way more demand for Quant. We're talking maybe 6 years, 7 years, maybe 10 years. When Bitcoin was $100, nobody thought it would ever hit 100,000. It was like $10. People were like, oh my goodness, this was magic internet money. Then it went to $100. Like, oh my goodness, this is crap. And went down back to, let's say, $12, $15, went down, and then boom, took off to 1,000, and then 4,000, then came back down, then took off to 20,000, came back down and took off to 60,000. Like, nobody expected to hit 100,000. It seems ridiculous when it's $100 or $10, but when it gets there, it doesn't seem so ridiculous, does it? So my point is, Bitcoin has more supply than Quant, which means that Quant with the same market cap as Bitcoin, the same demand, would be 160,000 for Quant. Eventually, if it has the same demand. Bitcoin is mainly used as a store of value. It is seen as a good use case for store of value. Most people would rather hold Bitcoin than hold fiat currencies because governments are printing it out of control. They're devaluating currencies. So it's a store of value in that way. I'm not saying that you can't do peer-to-peer with it. We're using it, obviously. But if Quant gets just the demand that Bitcoin has, that puts Quant at 160,000. And to me, I think Quant has 1,000 times more use cases with time than Bitcoin. Because with Quant, there's unlimited use cases. Because you're allowing any system that exists, software, databases, anything that exists, to connect to any blockchain. This includes AI, by the way. This is interoperability with AI as well. So you're allowing anything that exists today, any software, like I said, to connect to any blockchain and build whatever you can think of, you can build. You just don't know what you can build with it right now because there's so many options. You can pick the best features of every blockchain, and there's like 1 million blockchains right now. So what can you build? What kind of solution? It's unlimited, right? So the use cases for Quant eventually, compared to Bitcoin, in my opinion, is at least 100-fold, if not 1,000-fold.
I think it's way more than that. I think that the total addressable market, the theoretical demand that can actually flow through these assets is hundreds of trillions, if not quadrillions. Quant, right? Maybe by 2030, CBDCs, 100 trillion, tokenized assets, 400 trillion at some point in the future. FX, 2, 3 quadrillion dollars. You got insurance, another 7 trillion. Treasury management, 50 trillion. Private markets, 20 trillion. KYC compliance, another trillion. Stablecoin gateways, 30 trillion. Come on, add it up. We're looking at quadrillions of dollars that is flowing into that token.
Yeah, indirectly. Yeah. And what's crazy is that it's all being tokenized. It's a fact that it's all being tokenized. It's all going on a blockchain. You know what really blew me away when I started to looking into utility tokens is that you now have a token that captures the utility of a network. So like,
The real
yeah,
value
like
of the network, not the stock that represents the company, that represents
exactly.
the profit that they've made. You're talking about the actual value of the company.
Yeah, the utility. Yeah. So for example, a way to say this is, so with stocks in general, what moves the price is speculation. People think that the company is going to do well, or they come up with their numbers, they show they had a good year and they have a good projection, whatever. People buy it, called speculation, price goes up. People think it's not going to do well, they sell, it goes down, whatever. But the main driver, in my understanding, with stocks, most commodities or stocks anyways, it's what we call speculation. People
Yes.
speculate it's going to do well and the company does well and they keep buying. So, but with crypto, some crypto, especially if they have utility, you have two factors. You have speculation, but you also have utility. And what we mean by utility is that, let's say Facebook years ago was built on blockchain. Let's say we had blockchain at the time and Facebook was built on blockchain. So what they could have done is going to say, okay, we're going to build Facebook on blockchain here, and we're going to create this protocol, and we're going to create 20 million tokens, and we're going to set it hard coded that you can't create any more tokens. And anytime anybody does anything on Facebook, this social media platform network is going to have to use the token.
He is cooking. He's cooking.
Sorry about that. So imagine Facebook was built on a token, on a blockchain, and they had made a rule where there was 20 million tokens and you had to use a token. So if you invite a friend request, it's 1 token. If you send a message, it's a quarter of a token. If you send a video, it's half a token. If you like a picture, maybe it's just 1/10 of a token. But the Facebook network would not be able to function without using the token. So that's what we mean by capturing the utility of a network. You're forcing the utility and the usefulness of the network to use the token. You're forcing it to use the token. So you're taking all of the value and the utility of the network and you're driving it into the token, so that you're forcing the token to capture the value of the network. And I would say 98% of people in the blockchain don't even think about that. I've never heard anybody else explain that but me. I'm not saying nobody's thinking about it, but I've never heard anybody else explain that. It's the first time, because of tokenization and blockchain, it's the first time that we can capture the utility of a network. The example that I gave you of Facebook. Now that's what we're doing. Like, well, we're creating, like, so you could do that with YouTube, let's say. You could have done that with YouTube. If blockchain existed, you could have done that with Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. And so it captures the utility. So I'm saying that because of what you said. You were explaining how Quant is going to capture the value. That's what I mean. Like, you're with Quant, you're literally creating one of the biggest networks possibly that ever existed, because it's the network of networks. But you're forcing the network, you're putting an instrument in there that's literally forcing the token to capture the value of everything that's going to happen in this network of networks. And it's the same thing like the internet value, XRP. You're forcing the XRP token to capture the value of this new internet, capturing the utility. And so this is why, to me, and I may be wrong, but that's why the potential is you're going to have sell pressure because people need to sell. People are going to take profits. But the potential demand on some of these utility tokens is absolutely outrageous. It's insane. And I want to explain one thing too, guys, is like the price now doesn't reflect the real utility. Because if you look at Amazon, I don't know if you've seen Jeff Bezos talk about the history of Amazon. He said, while Amazon was growing like crazy, he says, we're looking at the numbers, he says our sales were increasing, our acquisition of client was increasing like crazy, our returns was way down, we're having less returns. Like every metric we're looking at was just booming, unreal. And at the same time, the price of the stock was going down. The price went from like $100 to $10, while everything about the company was just exploding in a positive way. The stock was actually going down. And he said, the stock is not the company is not the stock. And that's what I mean. Like, what's happening with Quant and XRP and some of these utility tokens right now, the price is not reflecting the real value of these networks that are being built and these use cases that are going to be being built right now on top of these networks.
I say it all the time. The impatient always seem to find a way to give their money to the patient ones. And that exact video of Jeff Bezos describing it probably had one of the biggest impacts on my strategy to being a long-term investor.
Mm.
Looking at the partnerships, looking at the pilots, looking at the integration, the adoption, regardless of the short-term price action, looking at how the actual network is growing. If you could sit there and maybe have that foresight of what 5 to 10 years could be, regardless of the short-term price action, that's, I think, how you become a successful investor. You look at some of the best investors in the world, they're sitting on assets for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I think that we're at a point where people are trying to measure the success of a crypto by its price. And we measure the success of a project by its pilots, by its partnerships, by its adoption, by its integration with traditional finance. This is how you
Yeah.
find the winners of crypto. And regulations are going to ultimately be what shifts it from that speculative market into that utility market. So many people have this microwave mentality, this Minute Maid mentality. When's the Lambo? Instead of just sitting there and saying, I am blessed to have this opportunity where I could accumulate and own the actual infrastructure of which JP Morgan Chase is going to use, Citibank is going to use, HSBC. We're at a certain point where retail front ran institutional enterprise and government adoption. And I don't think people are grateful enough to be at a certain point in time where the little fish were able to get into these assets before the big fish. It's the only time in history that we've been able to have this opportunity.
Amen. It's the first time in history because if you look at hedge funds and these big institutions, like they can't, like if you have a hedge fund manager, for example, he's managing, let's say $50 billion. He can't say to everybody that he's managing money to, hey, don't worry, I'm going to buy some crypto and I'm going to put a digital wallet. I'm going to store it in my suitcase. Don't worry. They didn't have the regulation and they didn't have the technology to be able to do it. Like you said, it's the first time that we can ever invest in something like this before the big money. And not only that, it's the first time that we can know about it. Because 30 years ago, you never would have known about this because you didn't have the internet to find out about it. This is insane. And what really breaks my heart and really pisses me off is we have it's not all their fault because a lot of people are preaching these things because they don't know better. It's a lack of knowledge. But you have some very influential people that are coming from real estate and different industries, maybe marketing. They made millions and millions of dollars, almost billions of dollars. And they're telling everybody, and these are influential people, they're respected for the industries they came from and their image, right? They're smart, they're business people, but they're telling people, like, you should only look at Bitcoin. Like, everything else is distraction, just focus on Bitcoin. When Bitcoin is literally 2,000 times more expensive. You have to look at the market cap, guys. 2,000 times more expensive than a project like Quant. And it'll probably peak maybe 200, 300,000, I'm not sure. But, and you have people literally saying, like, only focus on Bitcoin. And many of them are saying that because it's a lack of knowledge. We've been in this for years, so we know. But I know, I forgive them. But it just breaks my heart. It's just so crazy because here we have the greatest opportunity in history. And people are saying, look at Bitcoin when we have projects like XDC, HBAR, Quant, XLM, like all other projects too, like projects in AI. And I mean, there's many other projects that you can probably do better than Bitcoin, like that you're going to do better.